Those visuals on your screen, it's been an ongoing process, and Hamas now releasing Israeli hostages. Those visuals that you're seeing on your screen, we've seen earlier that hostages were released, and there was a sense of jubilation in Israel when people walked down. They came back to their families. There was also a sense of sorrow when there were remains sent of people who were no more, and Hamas said that it was bodies, it were people who were victims of Israeli attacks in Gaza, and now further hostages being released by Hamas. And I'm joined by my colleague Niranjan on the phone line. Niranjan, now those visuals coming in of hostages being released by Hamas, we saw a sense of jubilation, we saw a sense of sorrow in Israel because there were people who returned back to their families. They were all emotional, and now another picture of hostages being released, another sense of relief for those families there.
That's correct. This is very, very significant because these are the last of the hostages that are being released, Sucharita, and it's also critical because it comes 2 days after Hamas released the remains of 4 killed hostages who are dead in their custody, hostages who are dead for many, many months. We don't have an exact detail of when these hostages died, but their remains were released in a very, very pathetic condition. One of them, including a 9-month-old, he was abducted when he was 9 months old, and his body was also handed back, along with his mother and brother, and an 83-year-old senior citizen. Now, these are live pictures coming in from Gaza. Israel, in return, also expected to release 602 Palestinian prisoners and detainees that are also being held in their jails. This is the latest stage of the exchange, and the exchanges happened essentially after Donald Trump and Netanyahu met, and they gave out a very, very strong warning to Hamas that if they don't adhere to a deadline, and that the force of Israel and the force of America would be there to see, and that they will not speak this time, but they will go all out in demolishing the Hamas infrastructure. Now, these are live pictures. These are the last of the 6 hostages that are being released, and these are 6 more hostages in Gaza. They are being exchanged for hundreds of Palestinian prisoners. Some estimates putting that at 600, and they release 6. That is, Hamas releases 6 hostages. In return, Palestinian 600 prisoners and detainees will be released, and this is after accusations earlier of the return of a misidentified body. One of the 4 bodies that were released, the remains of one of them did not match, was misidentified, is what Israel had claimed. And these are the 6 who are the last living hostages from a group of 33 who are due to be freed in the first stage of the ceasefire deal. And this deal was agreed upon last month, and they are being handed over as we speak, according to the terrorist group Hamas. Now, 4 of the hostages, these are details that we have right now, names and ages. 4 of the hostages: Elia Cohen, 27 years old, Tal Shomam, 40 years old, Omer Shem Tov, 22 years old, and Omer Wenkert, 23, were all taken hostage by Hamas terrorists during their attack on Israel on the 7th of October 2023. 2 others, Hisham Al-Sayed, 36 years old, and Avera Mengistu, 39 years old, have been held by Hamas hostage since they entered Gaza separately, under unexplained circumstances. That was a decade ago. So 4 of them, out of the 6, 4 of them are from the 7th October attack, and the 2 of them, now in their mid and late 30s, are being held hostage for almost 10 years by Israel. So, in exchange for these 6, Israel is expected to let go of 602 Palestinian prisoners and detainees, and they have also been held in jails. And this is the latest stage of the exchange that has been held up in the last few weeks and months, despite a series of issues that have come close to sinking it on different occasions. This time around, Trump seems to have been the factor that has, hastened this process, that has speeded up this process. And on Thursday night, the day when we saw the pictures of the 4 bodies being handed over, Israel had also accused Hamas of violating ceasefire by handing over what is called an unidentified body instead of the remains of hostage Shiri Bibas. Shiri Bibas is the mother who was taken hostage along with the 2 children. Some of those pictures that you've already seen, very iconic images of her crying and pleading and holding her 2 children. One was a toddler, another 9-month-old infant, and she was holding them and crying when they were abducted. One of the most defining images of Hamas takeover, Hamas attack on Israel, and Israel claimed that Shiri Bibas, the mother's body, was unidentified, and it was not her body, is what Israel claimed, returned along with the bodies of her 2 small sons. So Hamas had then responded to that claim made by Israel, saying that the remains appear to have been mixed up with other human remains recovered from the rubble after the Israeli airstrike, which it claimed killed the family in the first place in November 2023. Now, on Friday, Hamas had handed over another body, which Israel forensic officials were preparing to investigate to confirm the identity. So that was the updated information on the unidentified body controversy, which Israel has referred to as a violation of the ceasefire. Now, these are live pictures, so very, very iconic images. And this perhaps we are hoping could mark an end.
There have also been very heart-wrenching visuals over the last 1 week, 10 days that we've been watching. There are people returning to their families after almost a period of close to 2 years. And now some of them returning in coffins. It's very heart-wrenching. And as you pointed out, the body that was returned with the body of Shiri Bibas, and I think that triggered the dispute again with Netanyahu, vowing for a revenge, saying that this was a malicious violation of the ceasefire agreements. So this exchange also with a lot of dispute lurking in around it.
Of course, I mean, Netanyahu had declared the release of the wrong body as a ceasefire violation. And Hamas had responded to that particular claim because Hamas knows that Netanyahu is on the verge of something big, and that he could, because, there is a huge sense of anger, a wave of anger in Israel over the release of the 4 bodies. And Netanyahu himself, a day before those bodies were released, came out and said that it's a very, very trying, testing moment for Israel. And he said that they are filled with grief and anger as the 4 bodies were coming home. And Thursday, after those bodies were released, I mean, imagine the anger when the mother's body, and she was the face of the entire mourning.